This episode of the Slash Filmcast is brought to you by Sonos. For the first time ever, Sonos is offering listeners of the Slash Filmcast 10% off one order of $2,500 or less for any product on Sonos.com. Use the promo code FILMCAST10, that's capital FILMCAST10 at Sonos.com to receive this exclusive offer. This episode is also brought to you by Bombfell. Go to bombfell.com/filmcast and get $25 off your first purchase. That's bombfell.com/filmcast for $25 off.
Great, Jeff. We don't need to do this now, but I was listening to the ads. I was listening to the episode, and it occurred to me that when we do the pre-rolls, even though it's not in the pre-written text, we should probably say what the service is, because some people might not know what Bombfell is or Sonos. But we don't need to do that right now. Maybe like just from now on, that's something we can do. Anyway, just a thought. All right, here we go. Do you guys hear anything in the background for me?
Nope.
There's like some crazy shit going on. Okay.
Stay safe.
I'm like hearing like a construction going on, and I'm very nervous it's going to be picked up in the mic.
I'm hearing pure silence right now.
Okay.
I hear it, yeah.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Slash Filmcast, the official podcast of SlashFilm.com. I'm David Chen, and with me are
Devendra Hardawar.
And Jeff Kanata.
Welcome to the show, everyone. What we're going to do here on today's podcast is we are going to announce the winners of last week's contest for the Big Sick Blu-ray. We're going to talk about what we've been watching, and then we're going to move on into some film news. Really, actually, TV news this week. We're just going to talk about the Emmys and what we thought of the winners and the ceremony, that kind of stuff, before concluding with an in-depth review of Mother. So,
No, Dave. It has an exclamation point at the end.
Oh, yeah. Mother? Mother?
Like American, like Arrested Development. Mother!
Yeah, exactly in that tone. But yeah, that's what we got on tap for you guys today. Find more episodes of this show at slashfilmcast.com. You can email us at slashfilmcast@gmail.com. Before we get started, I want to give a shout out to Harry Dean Stanton, one of the greatest character actors of all time. Recently passed away at the age of 91. Truly a titan. Do you guys have any favorite Harry Dean Stanton performances or movies that he was in?
Well, I mean, for me, I grew up loving him in Alien, but personally, I'm just so glad that he got to be back in Twin Peaks, like that, just replaying that role.
He brought a lot of kind of tenderness to that character in a show that didn't have much tenderness in it, from my perspective.
Sure.
Yeah,
but yeah, always glad to see his face.
Yeah,
love him.
Totally.
Yeah, he was always solid. He could win a grizzled contest with anybody, and man, what an awesome force in film and TV.
Totally.
Sad to see him go.
Totally. All right, guys. Last week, we offered you the opportunity to win one of 3 Big Sick Blu-rays. One of 3 Big Sick Blu-rays. I'm going to pause right here because I just realized I've selected 5 winners, and I should not select 5 winners. So let me delete 2 of them at random.
They don't know how close they were.
Sorry, random guys who you'll
two
never...
close winners. Almost only counts in horseshoes and hand grenades.
That's right. That's right. Let's see.
Blu-rays.
Hold on. Oh man, I love all these ones. Okay. Okay. Last week, we gave you the opportunity to win one of 3 Blu-rays for The Big Sick, the new film by Kumail Nanjiani and his wife Emily Gordon. It was one of the big hits of the summer and a romantic comedy that I think will stand the test of time. Dozens of you entered, and we asked you to email into /filmcast@gmail.com with your stories of the worst date you ever had that was related to movies somehow. Either date, significant other, your worst movie-going experience with a date or significant other. And boy, you guys emailed in some pretty crazy stories.
Yeah, there's some gems in there, man.
So I'm going to read some of them for your pleasure. But before I do that, I just want to announce who the winners are. Doug Schumer, Furzan Uddin, and Jerry from Orlando, Florida. So the winners are Doug Schumer, Shoemer.
Nailed
Sure.
it.
Nailed it. Thanks, Jeff. Furzan Uddin and Jerry from Orlando, Florida. Email /filmcast@gmail.com with your mailing address, please, as soon as possible, and we'll get those Blu-rays out to you. But I got to read you guys some of these entries into the contest. This one comes in from Doug, who's one of the winners. Doug writes in, I saw I Love You Man in a theater with some friends and adored it, but my wife did not see it with me. When it came out on DVD, I could not wait to show it to her. At that time, our youngest son was only 5, so finding time to watch the movie was tough. One night, we got Henry to bed and settled in to watch the DVD in our bedroom. I was so excited to share this great film with my wife, who loves movies. A little bit into the movie, right around when Sidney shows Peter his man cave for the first time, so a key scene, our son came tearing into our bedroom yelling, I don't feel well, and proceeded to projectile vomit all over me and my side of the bed.
Oh, no.
Instead of showing the care and concern a good father should have, I screamed at him, what the hell are you doing? You ran right past the bedroom to throw up on me? That is unacceptable. My wife, of course, was horrified at how I was behaving, immediately left the room to care for our sick child, leaving me to sadly turn off the DVD and spend the rest of the night alone with my thoughts. It was easily the biggest fight my wife and I have ever had, and a point in my life I am far from proud of. It was many years before she finally got to see the movie. End quote. That comes in from Doug.
He was going to say it left me alone with my vomit.
That one comes in from Doug, and yeah, Jeff, I thought I'd ask that question. Has you have a son, Jack, right, who recently had his first birthday, if I'm not mistaken?
Yeah, he's 1 year old, walking, just a couple of words now here and there. He's bundle of joy / anxiety.
Has he ever projectile vomited on you during a key movie watching experience?
No, he's not around when the television is on. We're doing no screens until after 2 at least. So there's that, but also I'm very fortunate, knock on every piece of wood that's around me, that he has not had any kind of projectile vomit episode. I mean, every kid throws up when they're infants, but there hasn't been any kind of projection. He did poop in the bathtub once, and that's a whole different story.
Well, glad to hear that you haven't got vomit all over yourself during a screening of I Love You Man like Doug did, but fortunately, to ease his pain, he's going to be receiving a Blu-ray copy of The Big Sick. Jerry from Orlando, Florida wrote this.
I liked how he worked in the sick into the equation too. That
was very good.
That's extra credit point.
Good
Extra
job.
credit. That was very good. Jerry from Orlando, Florida writes in with this story. The year was 2010. It was February, and I was in 7th grade. I was chubby. I looked like Ben from the movie It. And I thought that, and I'm just going to change the name here, Elizabeth Lucas was one of the most wonderful girls in my science class. I decided that I wanted to ask her out by asking her to be my Valentine and to take her to the movies that weekend. I asked my mom to help me do it, and my mom, being incredible and a graphic designer, she got me a teddy bear that was holding a heart. She wrote Lisa's name on the heart. I thought this is the best idea ever. Thursday, February 11th, I brought her the teddy bear and asked her to go to the movies with me on Sunday night, to which she responded with an enthusiastic yes, and thought the teddy bear was a lovely gift. Sunday rolls around, February 14th, 2010, and I thought to myself, what better film to watch on Valentine's Day than Valentine's Day? You know, that terrible movie with Taylor Swift and Taylor Lautner. We get there, I get popcorn for us and some drinks, and we head inside. Everything started out perfectly. So we're sitting there, my arm around her shoulder, and the movie's about halfway in. Suddenly, she pulls out her phone and begins to write a text message. I decide to let it slide since this is our first date, and I really liked her. As soon as she sends the text, she puts her phone away, and my phone suddenly vibrates. I take it out and see that I just received a text from, you guessed it, Elizabeth Lucas. The text read along the lines of, "You're very sweet and I'm sorry, but I don't want to go out with you or be your girlfriend." Just as this happens, two characters are making out in the film. I slowly put away my phone, retract my arm, and walk out to the restroom. I was so frustrated that I called my mom to pick me up. I went back inside only to find that she had moved to another seat. I waved goodbye and left. Ever since that day, I've always turned my phone off in the movie theater when I go on a date.
Oh.
End quote.
Oh man.
That
I guess that's. I guess
no
is
words.
that better?
yeah, no
that
word. That
better
is a
than-
brutal story.
Is that better than leaning over and going, "I don't want to be your girlfriend"? What? I don't want to be your girlfriend.
Yeah.
What? I don't want to be. Is that what she was trying to avoid? I guess.
Yeah, I don't know. Tough call on that one. Tough call. Not sure what the right thing to do was, but our heart breaks for you, Jerry.
The good news is, if there has to be a movie that's ruined for you forever,
yes,
might as well be Valentine's Day.
might as well be Valentine's Day. Might as well be
Exactly.
Valentine's Day. I'm also going to read an entry from someone who entered the contest but did not win. And this is actually my favorite entry, but the reason it didn't win is because this guy actually entered our Fast 8 contest and won that one. So, tough, what is it? What's the phrase?
Tough titties.
No, I don't want to say that. Tough something.
That's
Tough,
what you
right?
want to say, but you want to be nice about it. So
What is it? Tough luck? Is it tough luck?
Tough luck.
sure,
That
Anyway.
is a thing. That's a thing people say.
that's a thing.
What do humans say?
Bleep
It's
blorp.
like we broke your programming, Dave.
Anyway, tough luck, but this one comes in from Mahesh K. Mahesh K writes in, my worst theater experience with a date is pretty simple. I was out with some buddies from high school a few years ago to watch the highly acclaimed indie horror film Saw. I'm a horror lover, and we all decided to go see it. The group of friends included a few high school bros and a few girls, including the one that I was sort of crushing on, and vice versa, as it turns out. Right off the bat, we get into a semi-packed theater with popcorns and sodas in hand. I make sure to sit beside the right person, if you know what I mean, and the movie starts. It's going well, a few groans of disgust at some of the scenes, but nothing too intense, and it's a roller coaster of a good time. Then the last few minutes approach, and this is where things go horribly wrong. Spoilers for Saw coming, just in case you haven't seen the movie yet. We get to the part where Dr. Gordon goes nuts and starts cutting off his foot. I start hooting and hollering with glee. However, the girl I was with couldn't take it and gets super queasy. Just as I'm about to reach the handful of popcorn, she uses the bag as a sick bag, yup, with my hand still inside it. I immediately give it to her and scramble to find napkins. Despite the horrible stench, I stick my hand underneath the seat to control the smell and force myself to watch the final scenes of the film, as I've heard the ending is epic. I wait for the twist ending in anticipation, bracing myself for the awesomeness, and then the projector shuts off. That's right. The theater's projector messed up and we were not able to witness the end of the movie. We spent an extra 30 to 45 minutes while the technicians try to fix it, meaning an extra 30 to 45 minutes where my hand is covered in vomit. I foolishly didn't go to the bathroom as I feared the projector would start right up and I'd miss the ending. Finally, they announced the projector was dead, the screening was over, and they'd give us vouchers to use at any future show. I rushed to the bathroom to wash my hands, and at the end of the day, no one knew what happened besides the girl. Anyway,
Aw.
all in all,
That's like a real life Saw experiment. Saw torture session. It's amazing.
So true. What are you willing to do, kid? Instead of though, it's like the opposite. It's like instead of trying to get out of that situation, what are you
Yeah.
willing to do to stay in the situation?
right,
Yep.
right,
The movie
right.
could turn back on at any moment. You gonna go? You gonna go watch that hand?
I love it.
That is a
Oh,
lot
man.
of dedication to the movie Saw, which I don't think history has been kind to as a groundbreaking horror indie film. Simply because of all the sequels that kind of ran that franchise into the ground. But hey, man, I get it. I get it. Place yourself back at the time when the first Saw movie came out. Maybe like this whole Jigsaw thing was new. Maybe you didn't want to miss it, right?
I don't understand how the girl loses her lunch, and then she's just cool to stay there. Like there's no.
Right.
No, she's probably mortified too.
Yeah,
this
like,
is
there's-
a bad
like-
situation all around.
I feel like in that moment everything changes, and now we have to deal with the fact that you just threw up.
And reader, I married her.
Well, sorry you didn't win, Mahesh, but that was an incredible story, and we hope that you're enjoying that Fate of the Furious Blu-ray that you got from the other contest that you entered in. But anyway, Thanks to everyone for writing in your stories to /filmcast@gmail.com. They were heartbreaking and hilarious to behold. And again, Doug, Furzan, and Jerry, you guys are going to be getting Big Sick Blu-rays once you send me your address at /filmcast@gmail.com.
Nice. Do you guys have any quick, terrible movie stories to share? Because I have one that I'll always go back to.
Go for it.
Give it to us,
Yeah.
Sandra.
I saw Insomnia in the theater with two friends of mine from high school, so I was like in between college, and was driving my parents' car, parked up right next to the theater. Had a great time, loved that movie, and walk out, and my car was broken into.
Oh
Guys.
no.
Yeah, the what do you call it? The hood was up, and they disconnected the alarm, stole the radio, stole like all the stuff from within the car, all the electronics and stuff. The car was parked right next to the theater, guys. Like not like far away in the parking lot. It was right there. It was literally it was touching like theater ground or touching theater property basically. And so I was a little dumbfounded because there were also there was like nobody else in the parking lot. It was just my car pretty much. And the security guard rolls up. Eventually I flag him down. I was like, did you see anything? What's going on? And he just gives me like an emoji shrug. So that was amazing. Like, do your job, guy. But yeah, that's how I'll always remember Insomnia.
I'm sorry to hear that. You know, it reminds me of this time when, so The Primary Instinct, the movie I directed with Steven Tobolowsky, it's a concert film, and I filmed it at the Moore Theater in Seattle, and I invited a bunch of my friends from Seattle to come see it, and one of my friends got their car broken into during the concert.
Oh, man.
And I felt really bad. I felt like somehow responsible for that, because they wouldn't have been there if it weren't for me. But yeah, it sucks when a car prowl happens.
Hide your bags, hide everything, people, when you park anywhere, really.
Indeed. All right. Well, anyway, thanks again for your entries. And The Big Sick is out on Blu-ray, I believe today, actually, as we're recording this. So it should be out on Blu-ray. It's a great film. Check it out on Blu-ray if you haven't yet. Let's move on to what we've been watching. Devindra Hardwar, you've been watching a few things. Take us through it.
Yeah, a couple of things. I saw Ingrid Goes West a couple of weeks ago, actually. I just forgot to talk about it. And this is the Aubrey Plaza and Elizabeth Olsen movie that's really about like social media obsession. Aubrey Plaza plays a girl who is a lot obsessive, and she ends up obsessing over an Instagram celebrity played by Elizabeth Olsen. She ends up moving across the country and just like stalking her and trying to befriend her. And I just really enjoyed this film. It's a bit of a dark comedy because things get pretty real and a little violent at times and really messed up. But it's interesting, and I think it is trying to comment on our social media obsessed society in interesting ways, and it's a great role for Aubrey Plaza too. Like I'd much rather see her in films like this rather than like Mike and Dave Need Wedding Dates or something. Really plays to her strengths as a comedic actress and also somebody who plays unhinged pretty well too. So definitely worth checking out. It's funny, it is messed up, so I can't say if it's a great date movie unless you and your date both enjoy slightly messed up dark comedies. But if you do, it's a really good one.
All right, well, that's Ingrid Goes West. It's available right now in limited release, and it's being distributed by Neon, which is a relatively new distribution company. Anyway, let's move on. What else have you been watching this week, Devindra?
Oh, I saw the first 2 episodes of Top of the Lake, China Girl, and this is the 2nd season of the Jane Campion series. I forget which channel this is on, actually, because I'm just watching on Hulu. It's a channel that's really hard to get. I think it's Sundance, I believe. Most people don't have this. You have to have like the super cable package, but it is also, all the episodes are on Hulu right now. It is a direct continuation of the first season, which I really enjoyed. It does help having seen those episodes because it kind of builds on some of that plot. But yeah, it stars Elizabeth Moss as an Australian police detective who she finds the body of a young girl, and the entire season is about her trying to work through that. But just like the first season, there's a lot more going on. There's a lot of texture here. I think this show, more than any other show, really does a good job of just giving us a sense of place. And this one moves from New Zealand to Sydney. So you get the like grittiness of an Australian city, and you get to see like the sexism that's around there too. This season's all about the underground sex trade there, especially involving Asian women. So that's kind of the big thing going on. Really enjoy it as a detective story. It goes deeper into Elizabeth Moss's character. And this show has a portrayal of internet nerds that's not just nerds, but like internet trolls, right? The Reddit folks, the people who, the really big men's rights activist folks, like that type of internet person. It portrays them in a way that feels so accurate and chilling and gross that it makes my skin crawl. So yeah, this show is doing really interesting things, and yeah, I think it has a lot to say, just like the first one.
That's Top of the Lake season 2, and you're watching it on Hulu, right, Devindra?
Yeah.
You know, you bring up a couple things that reminds me of what you just talked about. Top of the Lake season 2 reminds me of Homeland season, I want to say 6 was the most recent one, right?
Mm-hmm.
Homeland season 6
so.
on Showtime. Yeah. And that was a season of Homeland that could not keep up with reality. There was a major subplot in Homeland. So I'll just say, like, I was already subscribing to Showtime because I was doing a Twin Peaks podcast. And so I thought, hey, might as well just marathon Homeland season 6 because I had actually watched every season until then. And I did that recently in the last couple months. And I just thought it could not keep up with reality. There was a major subplot that featured an Alex Jones type character who is not as extreme as the real Alex Jones, A. And B, he's running this kind of massive counterintelligence operation where he hires like hundreds of people to serve as Twitter sock puppets to bolster conservative viewpoints on Twitter and Facebook. And I think, in the absence of all this crazy stuff going on in reality, it might have been like a really interesting plot, but we already have documented evidence that kind of thing is happening in real life, except it's not people in the US, it's people from Russia that are doing it.
And bots and all sorts of
and bots and all kinds of things. It just felt like a show that tried to one-up reality and instead ended up getting one-upped by reality. So it was...
it couldn't keep up with the madness that's going on. I thought that was a good season, though, because that moved things to New York. And
here's what I'll say about it. They at least had the boldness to try something very, very different than what they've done in previous seasons.
For sure.
And it's very difficult when a show has been running for that long to not stick with the tried and true. And it was a very different season in terms of pacing and in terms of stakes than other seasons. So
for sure.
So I did appreciate that. Speaking of Hulu, also, Devindra, I wanted to just give a quick shout out to You're the Worst. I've been marathoning that, trying to catch up.
So
nice.
good.
I believe one of the writers of that show listens to this podcast, and he's in the Slack Filmcast. So I'm trying to catch up so I can kind of like participate in the chat about this season.
I'm glad you brought that up too, because the new season is pretty good.
Yeah. So You're the Worst, seasons 1 through 3 on Hulu, and I think season 4 is on FX right now. So
it's on FX, yeah.
I'm on about 2/3 of the way through season 3 right now, and I just find it captures our time in a really interesting way, in a way that's very different than, let's say, like BoJack Horseman. I feel like also captures our time.
I mean, there are so many shows about like the LA modern malaise,
right?
Exactly. And I think this is another one. I really enjoy it though. Like there are other ones like, that aren't, I don't think Difficult People set in LA. That's a New York show. But there are shows about like really annoying, hard to live with people like Catastrophe and like Difficult People. And I think You're the Worst just really does a good job of selling those characters despite them usually being big jerks, Yeah.
What else have you been watching, Devindra?
Also checked out now that you brought up You're the Worst, I do want to say this current season is pretty damn great. The first 2 episodes, it was like a 1-hour premiere. So there are 2 episodes that kind of directly build off of what happened at the end of last season. Just, tremendous. The show continues to get better. I'm glad that a show like this isn't slowing down, because a lot of other shows about, young people in our modern times, I'm thinking of like New Girl and some others, they tend to just lose their steam after a while.
This show over time,
this show still has its bite, and I kind of dig that.
Totally agreed.
And I also saw the first episode of American Vandal, which is, this show is hard to explain. It is sort of like a spoof on Serial, or the type of like
it's a spoof on Serial and Making a Murderer, I would say, is the most direct.
And Making a Murderer.
But it's a mockumentary about a crime of vandalism, basically.
A crime of who drew dicks all over the teachers' cars. That's it. Like, you get really serious about who drew the dicks. How did this happen? This guy who's implicated is clearly innocent or something like that. I love how the show commits to the premise, because it's just kind of it's absurd, and it there's 8 episodes of this, so I think I'm going to take my time with it a little. But it has some really great, hilarious moments, especially if you've watched things like Serial and Making a Murderer. Like, there are those eureka moments like that could turn the whole case around. And the first episode has one of those. It's just kind of hilarious, I thought. So yeah, if you're into this stuff, I think it's a decent spoof. Like, I found it more engaging than some of the Documentary Now, things I've seen.
It's American Vandal. And I watched the first 5 minutes of it and was stunned that it was not a YouTube video. Instead, it's an 8-episode series on Netflix.
I actually think you would like it, Dave.
That's what I keep hearing. I mean, I just thought I've already gotten enough of the bit already in the first 5 minutes. I don't see how I'm going to last 8 episodes. But several people responded when I tweeted about it, saying like it's worth, that they're really sucked into it. I think Miles McNutt said like the commitment to the bit is a huge part of the bit.
The commitment is great.
Yeah. So I don't know. I'll try making it all the way to the end of the first episode and go from there. We'll see. Mm-hmm. So that's what we've been watching. American Vandal is on Netflix right now, and if you like shows like Making a Murder, maybe you'll enjoy it. So that's
one of the things you always talk about, Devindra, is as we transition into our ad now. You said
nice.
Seamlessly.
Nice.
Is the sound. I more than anybody else I know, you have always talked at length about having great sound in your home theater setup.
For sure.
Yeah. Because everybody goes into the store and they look at the big screens and the shiny screens, and they want a bigger screen and they want to hire more pixels and all that stuff. But too few people pay attention to great sound, and that is, just as important a part of the process. And that's why I'm so excited that we got sponsored by Sonos, because Sonos is the best sound I have ever had in my house, in any place I've ever lived, including when I grew up and my dad was like obsessive about sound. Sonos takes it to a whole other level. I have the Play Bass, which I got back in April, and added a couple of Play One speakers as my rear speakers, and just added the Sub, which is the subwoofer. And all of that stuff works together in harmony to create this amazing surround sound system for watching movies and TV shows. And it is mind-boggling how good it sounds, how it paints a picture with audio around you and puts you inside. It's just incredible. But it also is amazing playing music. It's amazing listening to podcasts. I do that when I'm playing with my son. I put on a podcast and just have it playing through the back speakers, because that's back where his little play area is, behind the couch. It's phenomenal, and you can set up all those zones as independent zones. It has a really cool app that makes it super easy. You can set up all these zones in different rooms, and you can play different things or have it seamless, follow you through the house.
Yeah,
it's all modular.
I would say there's a few features of the Sonos that distinguish it from other speaker sets. One of them is that it uses wireless in your house, like the wireless network. It piggybacks off it to create a 5.1 surround system, basically. If you use what Jeff suggested, a Play Bass, a Sub, and 2 Play Ones, that's basically 5.1, and you're doing it without all the crazy tiny cords or wires that usually go to a 5.1 sound system. But another thing is it's modular, as Jeff indicated. So you can kind of you can buy like 10 Play Ones if you wanted to, stack them all around your house. You can buy just one. You can do whatever you want to do, and it kind of rewards you the more things you buy.
And it's really cool too, because you can have those Play Ones. Like, the way my house works, the back of the living room is kind of its own space, and that's where my kid plays. So I can separate out those Play Ones as their own quote unquote room, and they can contribute to the surround sound system. Like, they're linked to my living room surround sound system, but they are also their own room. So I can isolate them and just play a podcast through just one of the speakers or two of the speakers if I want. It's super easy to do all that. There's tons of freedom, and it sounds so good. These tiny little unobtrusive speakers that don't need wires, that just plug into your wall outlet, put out an incredible audio experience.
Yeah,
it's
it's
awesome.
far better than like Bluetooth sound, right? It's uncompressed
yeah.
sound too on the bigger speakers, so it all sounds pretty amazing.
Yeah, so a lot of high quality sound, a lot of high quality workmanship goes to the speakers, and I'm just wondering, Jeff. I mean, these things, they. Hold on, let me. I kind of fucked that up. Give me a second. I'm just wondering, Jeff. These speakers, they're very high quality, but can we get people who are listening to this a deal on these speakers?
Well, Dave, I'm so glad you asked that question because we can get them a deal. In fact, I mentioned at the very top of the show, you probably weren't listening then, but that's okay because I'm going to repeat it. With using our promo code, which is FilmCast10, you have to capitalize the F, capital FILMCAST, and then 10 at Sonos.com. For the first time ever, we're getting our listeners 10% off one order of $2,500 or less for any product on Sonos.com. So this is a limited time only offer. It can't be combined with other discounts or promotions, but it's pretty awesome. 10% off any order, $2,500 or less at Sonos.com. Just use that FilmCast10, capital F, and it's awesome that you'll let them know that you listen to us too, and you'll upgrade your sound, and I'm sure you'll enjoy it.
I really appreciated getting a few tweets from people who actually bought the Playbase using that code, right? We got a few tweets, and people were saying, like, this has completely changed their sound system for the better, and that they really appreciate it. Join those ranks. Go to Sonos.com, promo code FilmCast10 to get 10% off. Thanks to Sonos for sponsoring us. Let's move on, guys, to film and TV news. Just one quick film news item to mention. Jamie Lee Curtis coming back for a new Halloween, which is going to be coming out in, I think, October 19th of 2018.
Didn't she do that already? Wasn't there a 25th anniversary of Halloween that brought back
H20?
Jamie Lee Curtis?
I think it was an H20.
Yeah.
Right?
20?
H2O.
Yeah, H2O. That's right. H2O.
But this is presumably the last time. She tweeted out an image of herself playing the iconic role of Laurie Strode, and there's Mike Myers behind her, threateningly brandishing a knife. And there
When will those kids ever learn? I don't know.
The plot synopsis reads as follows. Jamie Lee Curtis returns to her iconic role as Laurie Strode, who comes to her final confrontation with Michael Myers, the masked figure who has haunted her since she narrowly escaped his killing spree on Halloween night 4 decades ago. John Carpenter will executive produce, and Jason Blum, who obviously did horror films like Get Out, The Purge, and Split, will also be a producer on this movie. And David Gordon Green will direct with a script that Danny McBride helped to write. So
That's
So you can expect hilarity.
yeah, you guys excited for this? I've never really been a Halloween fan myself. I'm more of like a Nightmare on Elm Street kind of guy.
That first movie is really good, like just the suspense and the tension. But I'm interested in this one just because David Gordon Green is fantastic.
He's a very interesting filmmaker, very interesting filmography he has.
Yeah,
right, very diverse. Yeah. So
I'm always interested when these things happen where you get the original cast decades later, and it seems like we are in this place where these properties are no longer precious, and people who grew up with them can really bring fresh takes to it. And I'm always hopeful that there'll be an interesting take on it, an interesting idea at play to bring back the original character. I'm always hopeful and curious. I'm not like you. I've never been a huge Halloween fan, but I'll keep an eye on this one.
All right, yeah. Well, we'll see. October of 2018 is when we'll see that movie, and maybe we'll review that one. We'll see, right? It's possible. Okay, let's talk about the Emmys, guys. The Emmys happened this past Sunday, big Sunday, and I watched the entire ceremony. Devindra, how much of it did you watch?
Pretty much like the last quarter. I was following along with the winners, but I was just wanting to see who won at the end.
Yeah, so I thought we'd just spend a few minutes talking about who won, talking about the ceremony itself. I thought the ceremony was pretty good overall. I thought Colbert did an overall good job with one exception, and that was inviting Sean Spicer to be part of the ceremony. But other than that, I thought he was on point and took the event as seriously as it deserves to be taken. Things I was really happy about. I was psyched that Big Little Lies got a lot of love, and Nicole Kidman won
deservedly so.
One of the best performances of the year.
For sure.
Nicole Kidman, Big Little Lies, showed us something I don't think we've ever seen in her as an actor before, and I just thought it was extraordinary. Veep continued to dominate, which, Veep is a great show, but it just has been so dominant over so many years. It feels like, come on, give someone else a turn, which they will, because I think next season is the last season. What else? Black Mirror won several awards that I thought were really awesome.
Pretty big. I mean, the big one is Handmaid's Tale, right? And
Yeah. But hold on, let me just finish. So Black Mirror won for Outstanding Writing for a Limited Series, Charlie Brooker for San Junipero.
Which is, I think, the clear standout episode of the new
exactly
batch.
Yeah, and
that along with our friend Dan Trachtenberg's episode.
That's right. San Junipero also won for Outstanding Television Movie, so it won twice. Very well deserved. San Junipero, an incredible episode of Black Mirror. If you haven't seen that episode, go watch it. You don't need to know any other Black Mirror. Just go check it out right now. It's on Netflix.
But also set aside some time to just nurse your heartbreak.
Yeah, and which is not the usual response to a Black Mirror episode.
Yeah.
Black Mirror episode is usually a harsher experience than that one is. I think that one had a softer touch and is a more beautiful story, and I'm glad it got recognition. Also love that Aziz Ansari and Lena Waithe is it pronounced? Won for Master of None episode. I thought that was great.
I almost broke out in tears when it won, because that was an incredibly emotional, moving episode. My favorite episode. Probably one of my favorite episodes of television of all time. In my entire life.
Standalone. It really feels like it's a standalone short film, right?
Yeah. The episode is Thanksgiving. It's on part of Master of None season 2. It is just outstanding, incredible, so powerful, and told from a perspective that you usually don't get. And when people argue for diversity in television and movies, it's episodes like Thanksgiving that they're arguing for, a perspective that you just wouldn't be able to get otherwise. It comes through in that episode, and also Aziz Ansari, class act, basically just let Lena Waithe do all the talking for that. Thank you, because I think Aziz Ansari, he's going to get other chances to talk. So for sure. I just thought it was such a uplifting win. Cheers broke out in the house when that episode won. So I was really happy about that.
And also Donald Glover winning 2 for Atlanta, which is a tremendous series, lovely series too, and glad he is getting love for that.
He not only won as an actor, he also won for Best Director, making him the first African American, I think, to win for directing at the Emmys. And
it's insane.
Yeah, it's an incredible achievement. Also, love that he gave a shout out to Hiro Murai, an insanely talented director who did many episodes of Atlanta. Atlanta, great show, one of the most visually distinctive shows on television, and I'm glad it won the awards that it did. But really, the big story is The Handmaid's Tale, guys. Handmaid's Tale,
insane.
Yeah, outstanding drama series, making it, I think, the first of the streaming-only networks like Hulu and Netflix to win a drama series category, I believe.
Yeah. Well, the best drama series for sure. Yeah.
Right.
If you would have been asked even 2 years ago, which streaming network would an Emmy first? How long would it take you to get around to Hulu?
Yeah, I mean,
Netflix has had so many, and Amazon has had Transparent and a whole bunch of shows for a while.
Then there's Crackle, Epic, Stars, Showtime.
Gotta get through all those.
And then maybe Hulu, I would mention, right? They took the prize. They took many prizes, many of which were well deserved. Reed Morano won for outstanding directing. She directed the first few episodes of that series. Really helped create that world. An ex-DP and a female director, so very notable that she took home the outstanding director prize. And what else? I feel like Ann Dowd won as outstanding supporting actress. Obviously, tremendous actress. A lot of people who like The Leftovers think that was a kind of makeup win for Ann Dowd because she was not recognized for her work in The Leftovers. And Bruce Miller won for writing for The Handmaid's Tale as well.
And nothing in The Leftovers was recognized for anything.
That's right.
The world is not fair.
Brutal.
But also Elizabeth Moss, that was her first win too, right, as lead actress. So
let me run this by you guys. Yeah. So the journalist Yashar Ali tweeted this the night of the Emmys, and he said it would be. This was actually before the Emmys happened. He said it would be a travesty if Elizabeth Moss won an Emmy for *The Handmaid's Tale*. She's a Scientologist. It is hypocritical of her to benefit from it. I've been wanting to talk about this for a while, but frankly, my mind has been occupied with other projects. *Handmaid's Tale* is about life in a totalitarian state where people, especially women, fear that one wrong word or action could land them in trouble. That's basically how Scientology operates, where one wrong word or action could lead your own family to rat you out and land you in trouble. Scientology may have tax-exempt status, but it is not a religion. It is a criminal money-making enterprise which destroys people's lives. If you're caught by anyone within Scientology, be it a family member or a friend doing something against the rules, they are required to write up a knowledge report. That person will get hauled in for expensive auditing or be forced to go to the org in Clearwater, Florida. Scientology engages in false imprisonment, works to drain parishioners of their money, and threatens them with release of their private info. So here we are with Elizabeth Moss. She's starring in a show that mirrors The Handmaid's Tale in more ways than one. Not many people know that until a few years ago, Scientology forced members in the Sea Org, like the priesthood, to have abortions. I have been obsessed with Scientology for 17 years and been working on an investigative series, which will come out soon. Elizabeth Moss gives money to and lends credibility to Scientology, which rips apart families. She is no ordinary Scientologist. Anyway, it goes on for a while, but point being that I did think it was, and a lot of people reacted very poorly to that thread too. They really did not like it because the belief is that the work should stand alone, right? That there should be, like, people's own personal belief should not reflect on whether they did a great job acting in a series, right?
Mm-hmm. I mean, I see his point too, and I'm no fan of Scientology, and I think everything he's pointing out is important. I think a lot of the negative reaction, it just seemed, I guess, a little classless to bring it up now because of the Emmys. And on a certain level, I do think, like, I've been watching Elizabeth Moss for a while. I know she's a talented actress, and I feel like, it was only a matter of time until she got this. I didn't know how much of her win you could point to Scientology for. That's the thing. Like, there is a certain hypocrisy.
Yeah, well, the point was that she won sort of because she's a Scientologist.
Well, I think that's sort of what he was implying.
Yeah, I think he's saying I think my reading was what Devendra was saying, like that she does in some way benefit from Scientology, right? Yep. But even apart from that, I think it's the idea that if you're part of something that is like antithetical to the principles of something that you're acting in, right? Should that affect your ability to win, a prize in that category or not?
It certainly affects how much I can really appreciate Elizabeth Moss right now. I love everything she's doing. She's amazing in Top of the Lake. She's amazing in *Handmaid's Tale*. But that inherent hypocrisy is kind of always there, and it bugs me. But I don't know if it should mean she shouldn't win the Emmy because she's also a tremendous actor.
I guess I'm not clear on the how she benefits point.
Well, I guess the idea that Scientologists benefit from, like, do you not think Tom Cruise has in some way benefited from his membership to Scientology? Like,
in Hollywood, I think
part of the
Scientology has benefited from their association with Tom Cruise.
Part of the narrative for Scientology, though, is that it is basically a great club for Hollywood elites, and everybody joins it, and they kind of help each other in a way. So that was a thing for a while. I don't know how much of an effect it has on people's careers once they actually become big and talented on their own.
Devendra, you said it was kind of classless to bring it up now. What did you mean by that? Do you mean we should have brought it up earlier before the Emmys? Or
yeah, I mean literally any time. That's the thing.
Any time before now would have been good.
You had so much time. And I can understand why he just kind of wanted to say this now. I'm a fan of his, but he's also he gets into trouble on social media because he tends to tweet a lot of things that may not always be accurate. I guess he tweets before he really thinks about it. But I see his point. This is a tough situation. Yeah.
I just think it's an odd. It's certainly a valid thing to bring up that the piece of fiction, the themes of the piece of fiction that she's being lauded for are in direct opposition to this thing that she seems to put a lot of energy in her personal life. That's perfectly valid to bring up. I just don't understand how it has anything to do with this award. I don't understand. I really honestly don't get hey, she only got an award because she's a Scientologist.
We don't know how many people who decide on these awards are actually a member too. It does kind of go deep.
Broad conspiracy to toss out willy-nilly.
It does. At the same time, man, a lot of people sure are Scientologists in Hollywood, huh? I don't know.
I
Yeah, but
guess
a lot
I
of
guess I
people
don't
are a lot of
understand.
things.
I don't understand. Like even if
There's-
she didn't benefit, it's still kind of an interesting ethical issue. I think because like, have you seen The Handmaid's Tale, Jeff?
I have not. It's a little disturbed. I mean, listen, I'm no fan of Scientology, but I'm no fan of any religion. And to say, oh, she got this award because she's a Scientologist, that's like people saying, oh, the Jew-run media is only awarding it to Jews.
Yeah.
There's no.
Again, putting aside whether or not it helped her to win, the Handmaid's Tale is about a totalitarian state, and like the show is very much
Right.
positioned as anti that. So
I think that is, as I said, as I started my comments saying, I think that's a very valid position to bring up. I think it's a bizarre thing, and it's something that you could definitely discuss with regard to this actress. Like, is she not aware of that? Is this a cry for help? Is it, it's a very, is it cognitive dissonance that she doesn't see that that's exactly the life that she's sort of participating in? That is all sort of on the table completely and worth discussing. But the idea of saying, well, because she's living this strange lie, we shouldn't award her an award for work that is clearly excellent. I don't understand that at all.
It's I have not made up my mind on this kind of issue because I can see it both ways, that like the work should stand on its own. But
and also too many people I like are Scientologists, and damn it, like it's
you're not going to get any argument from me,
Yeah.
but too many people I like have a lot of really dumb ideas about things, and that's unfortunate. But like, I don't know. It seems like an odd thing to say that if somebody believes something I don't believe, we shouldn't give them an award.
a lot of people also did bring up the like religion comparison. I'm like, as much as I think like there's a lot of nuance to this, I am deeply uncomfortable like saying Scientology is like the same as established religions. It's a longer conversation.
Well, that's a different
That's a
podcast,
longer
but
conversation.
I disagree with that vehemently.
all right. Well, anyway, I thought it was an interesting issue that came up during the Emmys and wanted to acknowledge it. But also, going back to the other awards at the Emmys this year, a couple other things I just wanted to mention. Number one, Saturday Night Live won big.
Yeah.
Kate McKinnon.
This young upstart show called Saturday Night Live just came out and won a bunch of awards, guys.
Yeah. I mean, they had a pretty good season. Kate McKinnon won an award as well. And what do you call it? Riz Ahmed won an award for his work in The Night Of. I thought he was great in that show, and I thought that was a well-deserved win. So
Did that show win anything else?
I don't think so.
Okay.
It was nominated for Outstanding Limited Series, but Big Little Lies won. So and it was also
so all is
nominated
right
for
in the world.
Yeah,
basically.
nominated for a couple of other awards. There was a bunch of shows and networks that were shut out. I think most notably, like the thing that really pained me was that Westworld didn't win anything. And I thought like Jeffrey Wright was amazing in that. I thought the pilot written by Jonathan Nolan was great. I just thought Westworld deserved a little bit more love. So
I mean, did it win any Creative Arts Emmys?
I believe so.
Because that was like the week before the show. Yeah, that was last week. I was surprised that Amazon basically nothing this year. Mozart in the Jungle did win a Creative Arts Emmy, but nothing in the main awards. And that's maybe that was we heard about Jeff Bezos's new plan to basically be better, because he doesn't really have a plan beyond that. But yeah, it's funny.
All right, let's move on. Jeff, how do you want to do this transition?
Oh, sorry. Here we go. Ready? You know the best part of the Emmys, guys? The just hands down the best part of the Emmys.
Sure.
What are people wearing? Right? That's what they always want to know on the red carpet. What are people wearing? It's something, honestly, I don't pay enough attention to in my life. And that's a shame. The reason for that is I don't like to shop. I hate it. I have always hated it. When I was a little kid, I hated it. I hated it as a teenager, in college. I hate it now. I never enjoy – if I can shop for electronics. I'll do that. I can shop for video games. But when it comes to dressing myself and looking stylish, I like looking stylish. I want to look stylish. I like how I feel when I look good, and I like getting compliments on how I look, and I like feeling like I'm in style. But I don't like to put in the work. Luckily, our sponsor, Bombfell, fits the bill for me perfectly. What I did was I signed up for Bombfell. And what
how do you spell Bombfell, Jeff?
Bombfell. And then what I did was I filled in all my sizes, best of my knowledge. I filled in my sizes, and then there's a questionnaire on the Bombfell sign up page. Very quick, simple questionnaire, but just kind of like gets a sense of who you are. Like, oh, you like this or you like that? What kind of clothes do you usually wear? Filled it in, bloop, bloop, bloop. What are you looking to do? Are you looking to improve your style? Are you looking to just get clothes easier? Whatever. And then they match you with a personal stylist. This is a person that a human being, not an algorithm. This is a human being that is stylish, that will get clothes for you, but also corresponds with you via email. So he sent me an email, said, "Hey, here's what I'm looking at for you. Here's, you were expressed interest in getting new pants, new shirt, new shorts. This is what I initially signed up with. Here's what I'm looking at." And I was like, wow, those look really cool. But I could have said, not so much. And he would have gone, oh, okay, well, here's some other ideas. There's a back and forth that you get to have. This is really a personal stylist that wants to make you look cool, but look cool in a way you're comfortable with and what you want your style to be. You go back and forth. And then I was a little nervous, to be honest with you, that the clothes were going to come. I never tried them on. I never had any personal contact with them. It was all done through the stylist. But they got to my house. These clothes fit so well. My wife was super impressed with how they looked. I'm telling you, I love wearing these clothes. In fact, I went to the Penny Arcade Expo in Seattle. Clothes I wore for my panel, the clothes I wanted to be in front of the live audience, the big live audience I did there. I wore my Bombfell outfit that I got, the shirt and pants, short sleeve button-up shirt, looked really stylish. And my co-host Anthony Carboni commented on it. He's like, "Oh, you really upped your game." I was like, "Yeah, I didn't want to tell him it was Bombfell, but it was Bombfell." It's awesome, guys.
Well, Jeff,
did you lean over and whisper to him, "I'm wearing Bombfell"?
I said, "I don't want to be your girlfriend."
Well, Jeff, as someone who gets all of his clothes at Costco, I have also tried Bombfell, and I will say it is way, way better than getting your clothes at Costco. It's as
a low
easy.
bar, David.
I don't know. Costco sells some pretty good clothes, but it.
Think so.
I think it does pretty good job. Pretty good. And it's as easy as Jeff says it is, and the clothes are as high quality as you would think, and love the working with a stylist. Like you would not think that something like this would produce good results, because hey, how can someone possibly know like what my measurements are, what I look good in? But they really streamline a lot of that process and help you get looking good real quick. So, and
you only buy the things that you want to buy. You're not forced into any decisions. If you get it and it doesn't fit right, you can send it back. It's all really, really cool. And I never have to go to the store. It's all done, and it improves my taste without me actually having to do any work, which is pretty amazing. The best part is we're going to give you a special offer that we fought for. We negotiated with Bombfell to make sure our listeners got an exclusive offer, and that is $25 off your first purchase. So head over to bombfell.com/filmcast. That's bombfell.com/FILMCAST, and you will get $25 off your first order. Just try it out. I think you're going to dig the clothes you'll get. I'm certainly happy, feeling better, feeling sharper, up in my game. Up your game. Bombfell.com/filmcast.
Really appreciate Bombfell sponsoring us. Let's move on. Before we get to our review of Mother, I want to thank all the people that donated to the podcast. Thanks to D. Chia from Salt Lake City, Utah, with a very generous donation. Thanks to Stuntbite from New Zealand for their donation. And thanks to new subscriber Brent Hosking, or I should say Brett Hosking, for subscribing at the rate of $2 per month. If you like what we do here on the podcast, want to support us, go to slashfilm.com, click on the /filmcast tab, use the PayPal links on the side of the page to donate to the show. All the money you donate helps us defray the cost of seeing movies and putting on the show for you guys. So we really appreciate it. And that's all we've got before we get to our review right now of Darren Aronofsky's Mother. All right. Bringing him on.
Do this.
Bring him on.
Holding my breath. Hello,
Hello?
Andy.
Yes. Hey.
Hey, Andy.
Hello.
Hey, guys.
Hey. So just so you know, we're broadcasting live right now. But we're like, I'm not this will not, what I'm talking to you right now, like what I'm saying to you will not be in the final episode. So thanks for joining us. I'm David Chen. You're on with Devindra and Devindra Hardawar and Jeff Kanata. I think you've met Jeff before, right?
Yes. I know all three of you. I've listened before. Big fans.
Awesome.
Nice.
Well,
And we have you, sir.
you know, Andy, I hate for this to be a love fest, but I am such a huge fan of Screen Junkies. It's like I watch it like every single week without fail. So just truly an honor to have you on the podcast tonight.
No, thank you so much for the kind words. Obviously, a lot of folks, not just me, behind the scenes making it all happen. So, but thank you.
I was told it
supporting.
was all you that was making it all happen.
Not all
so.
me. I can't take that credit. But no, and then likewise, like I should admit it because we have our own website, but Slash Film is my go-to source for all information. So it's an honor to be here too.
Awesome. And also, weird connection. My fiance hung out with your sister recently. I don't know if you were told
That's
about
a threat, just so you know.
that. No, true story.
You have to fill me in more on that. Yeah.
We'll talk about that later. Okay, anyway. So you've listened before, but
Live is fascinated.
what'd you say?
Sure, everyone live is fascinated by this.
They're totally. This is riveting radio. So we'll do like a non-spoiler section at the top, and then a spoiler section. I'll give a spoiler warning, and then we'll go into spoilers. I think we'll probably try to keep the non-spoiler section pretty short. Is my guess.
I don't know how to talk about this without spoiling.
Yeah. Also, Andy, may I ask what setup you're using right now? Do you like? I'm hearing a little bit of echo. I'm wondering if we're coming out on the speakers or something.
I can turn it down. Yes, is that? I can. Let me put on my headphones.
Yeah, if you put on headphones, I
That
think
would
that'll
help,
probably
yeah.
be fine.
Okay.
There we go.
Yeah.
Much better.
Yeah. I think
Oh yeah, you guys sound way sexier now.
That's what we're going for.
All right. Let me just send out a tweet, and then we'll be good to go. But yeah, it'll be very hard to talk about this without spoilers. So. Okay. I'll be ready to go in about 10 seconds. Okay, so when I come back, I'll have just played the trailer in the podcast. So that's what I'll be referring to. Here we go. In 3, 2, 1. That was from the trailer of Mother, the newest film by writer-director Darren Aronofsky. I'm going to read the plot summary from IMDb. A couple's relationship is tested when uninvited guests arrive at their home, disrupting their tranquil existence. I'm going to pause for a moment, actually. Andy, I forgot to ask, what is your official title over there at Screen Junkies?
Head screen junkie, let's call me.
Okay. Okay. Joining us today is a very special guest. He is head screen junkie at screenjunkies.com. Andy Signor, welcome to the Slash Filmcast. How are you doing today, Andy?
Hey guys, so happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
Glad to have you on. And before we move to the review, just want to mention that I'm a huge fan of Screen Junkies. If you don't watch Screen Junkies on YouTube or subscribe to them, you should do that. Plug done, but I love everything they do, so check out screenjunkies.com. But Andy...
So say we all.
Yeah, so say we all. All huge fans of Screen Junkies. Okay.
Yeah.
So what better way of welcoming one of the brains behind Screen Junkies onto the Slash Filmcast than by choosing a movie we can all agree on with no controversial opinions whatsoever? That is to say, Darren Aronofsky's Mother. Andy, what were your thoughts on this movie?
Well, we're trying not to spoil this movie, but it's one of those movies that's very hard to talk about without really diving deep. And I guess I will give it that credit. But the basic short version for me is I left unhappy, and I don't know if that was his goal or if that was the point. But I just wasn't. The movie stressed me out. The movie sort of made me think a lot, which I do admire. But I just, at the end of the day, couldn't get connected to why or what was going on or why I should care or why I was put through what I was put through to the point to recommend the film.
Well, when I saw the movie Mother, I could tell immediately that this would be a movie that was going to polarize people. And I don't know why, but I just felt like when I was watching it, people are going to walk out of this movie. Like I just had that thought. And
oh yeah,
I love like Matt Singer wrote a review of Mother at Letterboxd, and all the comments on this review are just people telling stories of other people walking out of their screening of Mother. So
and usually like cursing at the screen or something, like making it known they're leaving.
Andy, that's I got home. We were both at the same screening in LA, and I got home and loaded up my Twitter and saw that you had written that you would have walked out.
I was very close. There's a point in the film, I'm sure you know. I mean, it's sort of where it all goes haywire.
Right.
It was a point in the film where I was like, I don't want to watch this anymore. Why? I'd rather go spend time with my family or go read a book or just do anything else. But I didn't want to give the film the satisfaction that it made me walk out. It just made me angry, and I was like, all right, I'm gonna not walk out. I'm gonna sit here and I'm gonna see what you're doing. What's the point of this, Darren? I'm going to try and believe that there's a point at the end of this. And I struggled. I never really thought there was one. Like, I feel like there's this, because we've talked about this on Screen Junkies on our channels and such, and we've had sort of this argument, and I've had a lot of, because of those tweets, a lot of people do the whole, well, you just didn't understand it. You didn't understand the allegories and all the things. And it's like, yes, I did. They were hitting me over the head with it. Like, I knew what was going on. I don't think anybody really knows what's going on. There's a million ways you could interpret it, and there's some obvious ones that he's now even admitted are sort of what he was going for. That didn't make it any better for me. It's like, okay, great, I see what you're doing there, but why? What's really the goal here? And again, I don't want to get into spoilers of the ending and where it goes just yet, but that's what's just sort of stuck with me of like, I didn't understand what we really learned from it. It was just one of those things that I can see why people and a lot of film critics enjoyed it, and it challenged them, and I can give it credit in that regard. But as a film, I was not entertained. I wasn't challenged in a way that made me rethink my life or what the world is like or what do we learn or what can we do to change it. It just felt like it was torture.
Let me read out a couple of these. I won't read out too many, but I want to read out a couple of these stories because I found them to be so hilarious. This person named Peterson Hill wrote on this Letterboxd review, the gentleman in front of me left the theater to take a call from Rodney Johnson. He said his name rather loudly. When he stood up, he told his wife, Rodney wouldn't like this. Baby, I didn't like this. There's
Rod Johnson? Really?
Yeah.
Braxton Fannin writes, about halfway through my screening, two different people on opposite sides of the theater stood up to walk out at the same time. They pointed across to each other and shared a moment. Anyway. I just thought
the movie is bringing people together. See?
Yeah, it's like, now I feel bad I didn't do one of those walkouts and make it way more fun.
Jeff Kanata, take us through your thoughts on Mother.
Okay, so part of the reason that I engaged Andy on Twitter when I read his tweet is because of how opposite I felt to it, and I'm so glad he's here that we can engage in a discussion about it because I loved this movie. I loved it. And I'm not always into Aronofsky, right? I did not like Noah at all. I think we reviewed it on the show, and I did not care for that film. Mm-hmm. He's not. It's not always a home run with Aronofsky for me. This one was, and I'll explain a little bit why in ways that are non-spoilery, and we'll get deeper when we get there. But first of all, just at the beginning of this film, I mean, as I tend to do, I go into movies not knowing anything about what's going on. And that is a particularly beautiful way to start the relationship with this movie, because a lot of what the movie is about is what's going on and where are we headed, and feeling bewildered by just the chaos of what's going around. And the way Aronofsky films it almost entirely in close-up for most of the movie on Jennifer Lawrence, and feeling this constrained, confined, oppressive view of her and the chaos that starts to unravel around her. And I tend to like movies or stories where someone is trying to hold it together amidst chaos. Mm-hmm. I was trying to think of like some examples of that, of other movies like that I love.
Can I just interject for a second, Jeff? You were talking about like how the filmmaking focuses on this like inner perspective. 99% of the shots of this movie are one of three shots. Darren Aronofsky said this, right? It's either shot from Jennifer Lawrence's character point of view, it's a shot of her close-up, like a close-up shot of her face, or damn it, what was the third one? I forgot.
Or other.
No, it was. Hold on, I'll find it. Anyway, sorry. Pretend I didn't.
That was definitely worth interjecting me for that.
Yeah, no,
Well, there's the WTF shot.
I fucked that up. I fucked that up. Yeah.
It was 66 minutes of her close-up face. Someone did the math out of the 2 hours, so half of the film you're watching her face up close.
Oh yeah, okay, hold on. That's so. Jeff, the filmmaking to put you in her perspective. 99% of the movie was one of three shots. It was either from her perspective, like her POV, a close up of her face, or behind the shoulder, right? Like over the shoulder, right? That's like the vast majority of the shots in the movie, and I thought it was really effective at immersing you in that perspective. Anyway, sorry.
Yeah, it's not just immersing you in her perspective too. It feels claustrophobic. It feels, because the movie is about this tension, and I will say that coming directly from seeing It to seeing Mother, I know everybody's loving It, and it was fine, but at no point did I ever feel a sense of tension in It like I feel in Mother throughout the entire movie. And that is,
because anything can happen. Basically.
Anything can happen. That's a great way of putting it. You have no idea where you're headed. And that, to me, is such a wonderful place to be. I mean, that's why I don't want to watch trailers, right? Is I want to not know where I'm headed. But this movie in particular uses that as a device to string you along and put you inside this character who doesn't know what's going on. And as I was saying, I love these movies where someone is trying to keep plates spinning in three different places at once, you know, and as things completely unravel. And I was trying to think of examples of that. The one I always come to that I honestly don't even know if it holds up because I haven't seen it in so long is Judgment Night.
Oh, yeah, Emilio Estevez.
Man.
Right?
Man.
They got, those guys just wanted to go and have a great bachelor party or whatever it was. They were going to a fight. They were going to see a fight, right? And they just take one wrong turn and then everything's out of control. I love that stuff. Or even a better, more recent example is the episode of It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia called Charlie Work, which is a lot like this movie in a lot of ways. You're just kind of in Charlie's world and he's trying to make everything happen and keep a lid on all this chaos that's going around. Anyway, I love that theme of I'm a normal person. I have a completely genuine, good-hearted intention. I just want things to be held together, and I'm not. And everything I do just makes it worse. And I just felt so inside Jennifer Lawrence's experience of just trying to do the right thing and not understanding why it's not working and trying to be a good person at every turn, which when the central metaphor of what is really going on lands, and it landed on me very early. It's not a big mystery, but we won't talk about it now. It hit me and it brought me through into her experience in such a profound way that I honestly came home from this and apologized to my wife because I have never through a piece of media understood my wife's perspective. And I'm probably going to say some things in the spoiler section of this review that are much more personal and revealing than I should. But that is what this movie did to me. It made me really look at my own life in a bare, honest way that nothing has ever done before, and put me in the shoes of my wife, whom I love, whom I want to honor and respect at every turn, and who I always try to understand her perspective. But this movie gave me her perspective because it is exaggerated and it is magical and it is in a realm of unreality, right? It is using metaphor and it is using a heightened reality of cinematic language that expresses these everyday issues that my wife deals with so much more clearly to me. I get it now. Like I'm put through that experience, and we'll get more to what that's about. But I think purely on just like a sense of adventure level, which is this movie takes me through an adventure of a character who is trying to hold it all together as it goes crazy. Just that question mark of where we're going, not knowing what and where we end up. We do end up going is like so insane and over the top and wild. Like that ride, just as on a pure visceral level, was fun, but also the layer of metaphor that worked for me actually changed the kind of person I want to be in my life.
Wow!
And how often can you say that about a movie?
Indeed,
it's a tremendous accomplishment and an amazing movie. Now, I don't think it's perfect. Like I think the movie could be shorter. I think there are things that he hits over the head that are a little redundant, and we don't need to quite like we get it at a certain point. Like you don't need to keep hammering that. But I can't say anything other than the fact that this movie was an extraordinary experience for me.
Andy, did any of that sway you at all? Just out of curiosity.
No, look, I appreciate all you're saying, and I can see your point of view. I guess where I am stuck though is like, the ride wasn't fun for me. You said the ride is fun. Like, and I get that's what he's trying to do. But I can see, and I'm glad you got that point of view and perspective of it. Like, I feel like I see that every day just in this current political administration. Like, there are things I can get that viewpoint from of how to be a better person and other things like we can learn that from. I felt like the film was just so heavy-handed and just trying to shock for shock's sake. I was also seeing a little bit of like, it felt like very pretentious and like this Darren's own story of the creator and the muse and all these things that sort of just felt like, why are you putting her through this? It just was so extreme to the point. I agree. There was the tenseness, the claustrophobia. He was going for this sort of to make you react, and he did make me react in a negative way. And there were particular parts that really affected me in a negative way. I'm just like, I don't want to see that. If you're going to go there, like, have a point to it. And I just feel like at the end of the movie, again, it's hard. I'm trying not to spoil this.
Right.
But it's like, by the end of the movie, I just didn't feel like I left learning anything. I've said this before, but it's like, I just didn't feel, I feel like the things you're saying, Jeff, I agree. And I can see where you saw them. But for me, I thought he could have dealt them in a nicer hand, in a more succinct way, with a message that sort of was more relatable to more people. That I just didn't find it there. I had trouble finding it. It just was a chore for me to go through, and the allegories felt so obvious throughout the film that and then they were all so mixed. It was such a mixed message of allegories that. It's a little bit of this. It's a little bit of that.
He's mixing his allegories. Yeah, definitely.
I mean, I do think he was, and it's like that's where things sort of got disjointed for me. I think the film I do agree, like it starts in this way where you don't know where it's going. And I think the other thing that was actually, let me rewind. The one thing that may have put me and was offsetting just for me was like the marketing of this film, which I do think is worthy of discussion. Like there was sort of this marketing effort of this is Rosemary's Baby, and you won't believe this WTF moment, and the shocking film, and they sort of were trying to trick the audience into not understanding that this is a deep, artistic, metaphor-filled movie that's like there to challenge you and make you think.
But so is Rosemary's Baby. I just want to say.
Sure, no, fair, but it's they're different films in my point.
Yeah.
I think one's definitely more commercially viable version of that, and one's definitely a more of an artistic, harder to watch film, which I think Mother was. And I just think I went in with this mindset of like, ooh, big twist, and ooh, this is going to be a crazy horror movie. And I didn't leave that way. It's a horror movie in a reality sort of way, I guess. But yeah, that I can see. But I feel like maybe it's just because I see so much of that day to day and in the current world we live in that I didn't leave like jazzed to be like, man, yeah, I got to change my life. Like I've been there. I've already been feeling that way for months. And to me, this was just like running me through the coals to remind me of how crappy life is, and that I didn't really get a takeaway that I just felt like it was helpful for me. And again, it's hard for me to not see sort of Darren. This is clearly a personal story for him. I don't know him, and I don't want to sort of judge and say what it is, but there just felt a little bit of like, I'm a genius. Like, oh, it's so hard to be a genius, and
But the genius is not a good guy in the story. Like, this story is all about trying to understand the person who has to suffer to live alongside this asshole.
Totally,
which I think is a pretty reflective thing to do.
Is Darren the asshole? Is what I'm curious.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. Let's talk.
Yes.
Let's talk. Can we please wait to spoilers to talk about that? And,
we should
Jeff,
say.
I really want to move to spoilers as soon as possible. Jeff,
yeah,
go
we
ahead.
should do that. But we should also say that you are right, undeniably right on one point, Andy, and that is $8 million opening. The marketing did not work for this movie.
Yeah.
Not only $8 million opening, but an F cinema score, which not very many movies have gotten. Cinema score is like an indication of how well audiences liked the movie. Andy, I think you're exactly right. This was positioned as a psychological horror movie, and there was psychological horror in it.
It is.
But it definitely wasn't quite. It didn't quite deliver on what the trailer promised. In my opinion,
this film should have been advertised as an awards contender of. Jennifer Lawrence gives the performance of her career, and Javier, but and Darren Aronofsky, like there's a way to advertise this to a more an adult base that's sort of like this is an art house award contender that I think they missed the mark on, and I think a lot of people left this movie frustrated and angry and sort of misled, and that's part of the reasons I even reacted. Like I try not to be so critical these days of like films if I hate this movie, but this one did leave a visceral action of not just that I didn't like it, but I wanted just people to go in prepared to know what they're in for, which I think is important with this movie, because I do think people will enjoy this film, and I love this dialogue because there's so much to pack and unpack from it, that I do give it credit in that regard, but I think it's just not a film for a lot of people, and I think people just need to go ready and willing to know, like, okay, this isn't some, fun horror movie with a twist. This is a very intense, psychological, artistic, full of things you need to unpack and take, and not necessarily a happy ending. Like, you sort of need to go in aware of that.
Yeah.
It's almost like you're saying people will like the movie more if they don't see the trailers.
Well,
I don't know about that. I think there's plenty of people who didn't see the trailer who also didn't react well to the movie. But Devendra, why don't you take us through your brief?
We will make an honest trailer. Don't you worry.
I'm excited to see that.
I am looking forward to that. Yeah, for sure.
I actually quite like the trailers, but maybe this is clearly an art house film. It's an independent film, and maybe it shouldn't be in wide release. Like, I think that's the bigger thing. This movie's on a lot of cinema screens because there's so much star power behind it. But yeah, I just want to say, Jeff, I'm so glad you like this movie. I was very prepared to, I guess, repeat our Noah chat, which is a movie I respected but wasn't as successful. But this movie, I freaking love. Like, this movie exemplifies why I'm a huge Darren Aronofsky fan. It swings for the fences, and it don't care if you like it or not. And first of all, I respect that. To me, thematically, this film feels like a direct sequel to Noah in a way, too. Like, he's an angry guy. Have you guys noticed this throughout his films? And he's expressing it through this film, like through the sheer insanity of what we see here. And I also, I got to look up like when he actually wrote this, but he didn't write this like in the middle of the Trump era, I think.
Well, according to the little essay that he gave all of the reviewers to read before it, he wrote the script in 5 days.
That sounds about right. But did he say when? Was it 2016 or was it 2015?
I'll have to reread
I'm not sure.
my essay.
But it does feel like to me, this is the purest artistic reflection of the insanity of what we're living in right now. In so many ways too. Like, Noah was really his that was like a big budget fantasy biblical story told in the way of Lord of the Rings, but it was also like a film about environmentalism in a way. And he's always struck me as a guy, first of all, he's always trying to use religion to kind of deconstruct the world. That's been true since Pi, and I love how he goes deep with all of that. There's a ton of allegory here, both religious and also, like, you could read so much into this film too. Like, there's definitely a reading of celebrity culture here too, but I don't think that's as effective as some of the other ones. I just love to think of it as a true sequel to Noah. Like, basically, we've fucked up the world. Like, we humans have destroyed everything. And, maybe something is a little pissed about that. And maybe it's like these uninvited guests just need to get the fuck out. And it may have to happen in Fire and Brimstone or something. The imagery, it's Aronofsky. Like, he's always blunt about pretty much all of his imagery and symbolism, but that's kind of the way he works. You can't. I don't know if you can swing for the fences and be subtle about swinging for the fences, right? Yeah, just want to say, love everything about this film. We're going to dig deeper into it, but I'm so glad that he got to make this movie, and it's so singularly his vision. I think of directors like him and maybe Lars von Trier too, people who just really, go for broke and don't really care what people think. And for me, Aronofsky is typically more successful at this stuff. Yeah, this movie basically describes why I love him as a director.
Well, I desperately want to get to spoilers, so I'm willing to just skip my opinion completely. But
I want to hear your opinion, Dave.
I will say this, that I thought is ludicrous that Paramount felt the need to defend the decision to release this movie. I mean, look, let me ask you this question, Andy. You may not like the movie, but are you at least glad that movies like this can still exist and be released in wide release in movie theaters, or do you feel like?
Look, absolutely. I just didn't like the film, but I technically the film's great. I mean, I had trouble enjoying some of the camera work and some of the amazing stuff he was doing in the second half, just because I was sort of turned off by the subject matter and the way it was going. But I can totally see some amazing artistic and technical achievements he was pulling off. That said, there was a lot of you just brought up the sort of they have been having to be on the defense of this movie. But I'm also what's frustrating me is I feel like Darren is constantly having to explain himself, which has also made me uninterested in the movie.
Mm-hmm.
It's that director.
You should probably not talk so much about what he thinks.
That director's statement he shared beforehand was just full of such hyperbole and just made it seem like it was more about him and he's the struggling genius. And it was very off-putting for me in watching the film of just let me make up my own mind, dude. And then I feel like he's now in multiple interviews sharing this is what it really means. And I'm like, dude, you're not helping the cause here, because now you are feeling like Javier Bardem. And now I'm makes me dislike the film even more, because the House of Cards sort of falls for me of oh, this isn't some big creative sort of allegory or biblical allegory. This is an intense thing you were trying to get through, which whatever, good on you. And I'm glad you get it out. And I'm glad someone paid a lot of money to let you get it out. But anyway, to wrap up your question, yes, of course, I want to see more films like this, more original films that take chances. I think just the combination of the over explanations, the too many allegories, the sort of the fact that it didn't go anywhere for me by the end are the reasons I just didn't like the film. But I absolutely want to make sure filmmakers like Darren can make more films like this. We're definitely better for it.
Mm-hmm. Can I say two things real quick, Dave? Sorry.
Sure.
Real quick. Sorry. I know
I haven't gotten a chance to talk at all, but continue.
Okay.
This is going to be a long one, I can tell.
Yeah.
The first thing, okay. Go ahead, Dave. Go ahead.
No, it's okay. It's okay. I'm just giving you a hard time. I'm not really upset. Go ahead.
I feel like we're all going to be on this for a while. Go ahead. Yeah.
Firstly, to your point, Andy, is when I was growing up in the '90s, I used to love the fact that a guy like Eddie Vedder when people are like, "What does your song mean?" He'd be like, "What does it mean to you? It doesn't matter what it means to me."
Mm-hmm.
And I think that a lot of artists could benefit from that point of view. You're making a piece of art, and you're putting it out into the world. Just let it have its own life for people, and you don't have. I feel like there are some artists that love to explain it. To them, it was so much fun to create all these little hidden things and allegories and metaphors and things. Oh, it's so fun. I want to explain it to everybody what I did. And the best artists just go, it's just interpret it how you interpret it. And I think that is always a better approach. And secondly, I want to say, we've been wanting to have you on the show for a long time, and I'm glad you're here to express an alternate opinion, but I hate for you to feel as if we're all I hate for you to feel lonely in your defense of a opinion that seems to be shared by an awful lot of people about this movie.
Yeah, I don't feel lonely judging by the cinema score. I think you guys are in the minority on this one.
Good. Well, I'm glad your opinion is here to be expressed, so we appreciate it.
Yeah, and to that first point, basically Darren Aronofsky is pulling an anti-David Lynch. I don't know if you guys have seen how David Lynch is handling press around Twin Peaks. But the interviews that he gives are basically incomprehensible. I mean, like, he's not saying anything at all useful. But the thing is, it's kind of a damned if you do, damned if you don't situation, right? Like, people criticize Lynch for giving these like completely opaque, incomprehensible interviews. And they criticize, Darren Aronofsky for giving too many interviews. So I guess I feel like as a filmmaker, it's like you're going to receive criticism no matter what. But I agree with you guys that in this case, it might have been a better situation to just let it be, on its own and being interpreted in the world. And I will just read briefly this statement from Paramount. They said, the movie is very audacious and brave. You're talking about a director at the top of his game and an actress at the top of her game. They made a movie that was intended to be bold. Everyone wants original filmmaking, and everyone celebrates Netflix when they tell a story no one wants to tell. This is our version. We don't want all movies to be safe, and it's okay if some people don't get it, end quote. I just think it's insane.
Bravo.
That this movie is a wide release movie from a major studio like Paramount. That's just insane.
Yeah.
That's insane.
It's insane.
Well, because it's Jennifer Lawrence and Javier
Joker
Bardem in it.
Right.
Yeah.
Sure, but still, this is the studio that released Transformers earlier this year.
Whoever tweeted the Joker lighting the pile of money on fire, like that's basically what it is.
Exactly.
That's all Aronofsky is.
Exactly. All right, guys.
And the marketing department sees Jennifer Lawrence above the title, and that's all they need to
That's
know.
all they need. Well, I'm a fan of the fact that this movie is out in theaters. I didn't like it quite as much as you. It was not quite as much of a life-changing experience as it was for you, Jeff. But I also didn't hate this as much as Andy did. So I'm kind of right in the middle. I'm glad it exists. I'm glad it's provoking all this conversation. Let's get to spoilers starting right now. Sorry, Jeff. I didn't mean to be snarky at you. I just.
Well, I didn't mean to interrupt you. I wasn't trying to add more opinion. I was just.
Kiss and make up, guys.
All right. Anyway, let's get to spoilers, guys. Here's what I want to ask you, Andy. All right, is what I think was great about this movie for me, my experience is as I was going through it, I kept thinking that what the allegory was like kept shifting. Now, ultimately, I think it's a biblical allegory. And when I read Darren Aronofsky's interviews, he's talking about, Noah was meant to tell like a biblical story from the Jewish perspective. This is meant to tell the biblical story from the Christian perspective. And so I ultimately think like that's how I read it as a biblical allegory. But it definitely changed many times. Like my reading of it changed many times throughout the course of the movie. And one of the readings I had was something that I think you and Jeff could relate to very much, slightly more than me and Devindra. But this idea that it's about a creator who puts himself out there, right, and kind of shares his life with all these strangers, right? He's like letting all these people into his house, and Jennifer Lawrence is freaking out about it, and she doesn't know what's happening, and like her love is not enough. Like he needs the adulation and the praise of all these strangers, and he's letting in all these strangers into his house. And it felt like the life of like an online creator that you're like, or not an online creator, just a creator in general, an artist in general. Like there's all these strangers who praise you and whose praise you kind of feed off of, and that takes a toll on the people that you love. Yeah. And so I was just curious, like, Did you at all read that, like, as a creator yourself, Andy, whose work reaches millions of people every week? Like, did you at all read that, and did that resonate for you at all?
Yeah, no, I'm glad you brought. I mean, it's a fascinating point. I guess that's another reason I didn't like the film as much, because I can relate to that. Like, I'm not going to complain about my lifestyle or that people stop me at Comic-Cons and do that. Like, it's a very lucky life that I get to live. At the same time, it gets weird. Like, as someone who just was a, nerd in school and then suddenly build this brand that I get to host shows, and I'm sure, Jeff, you can relate, to get stopped anywhere is a weird thing you have to sort of get used to. And the waiter at the restaurant's like, I'm a big fan. You quickly have to realize, okay, well, I have to make sure I give you a good tip, and please don't pay attention to what I'm ordering. Like there's a weird world that happens of course, where people, are all wanting
Signor likes ketchup on his pancake.
Exactly. But there's, and there's just a weird thing of you quickly have to realize there are people out there who are paying attention to the things you do. And I can't even imagine the level that a Jennifer Lawrence or a Brad Pitt has to sort of deal with that. It's like, it blows my mind. I do see sort of this challenge that I feel like celebrities have to go through. And I also can relate to sort of the challenge of the creator of what do you do and what you'll do for the art and how you get it out there. All of those things are always nagging at me and in a positive and negative way, that I was dying to really enjoy and connect to this movie. And I felt like find a way for me to relate or show the struggle in a bigger or greater way. And I just felt like it was such a negative portrayal of this guy, Javier Bardem, as the god or whatever we're going to call him, the creator, the genius, just constantly just shitting on. I can curse, right?
Yes, definitely.
Just constantly shitting on this woman who's just there to support him. And it's like, it was hard to relate and figure out why and she was doing it. And you're sort of watching this abused woman just be put through the ringer. It just was like 2 hours of how long can we torture Jennifer Lawrence before she cracks?
It is very torturous. And apparently I'm told that like Jennifer Lawrence's brother was at like the premiere screening and like had to leave during the part when she was getting brutalized by the crowd. That I don't know if that's like, I think I heard that rumor somewhere on some chat somewhere, but I don't know if it
sounds
true.
like accurate news.
I don't know if it's true, but yeah, I don't know. It sounds like it could be accurate. Like that's a brutal scene, you know, when she is ripped apart by the crowd.
I'm really glad you brought it up this way, Dave, because I'm not as has been made clear on this episode already. I'm not a religious person, and I did not connect with any kind of religious allegory to this movie at all. But I did. It's 100% why I love this movie is because it felt intensely personal to me, and I have many friends who do what we do what I do. Whose wives also, or girlfriends or whatever, significant others, do similar things, are in the public eye, do on Twitter, or do shows of their own, whatever. That is not my situation. My wife doesn't really deal with Twitter. She doesn't, she's engaged and she's very supportive of me and what I do, but she is just not a public-facing person at all. And the dynamic of how our life has been, especially having had a child a year ago, I had insight into her perspective through this movie in a way that I've never had before. Now, I would never hold myself up as the kind of character that Javier Bardem is portrayed to be in this movie. I'm not this mad genius, right? But I never got what Andy, you seem to have gotten from him, that he is this purely malevolent force in her life. That I got that he does love her. He does love her.
Oh, see, that's where you lose me. I mean, I feel like he's just gas-lamping her the entire time.
It really depends, though, guys, on like how you're viewing this movie too. Like, are you viewing this movie as an actual relationship between two real people, or are these people symbols of like everything he's trying to say? Nobody has names. Like, the movie is very clear about like what, if you look at it as like, an actual husband and wife dynamic. I think it is a little unbelievable at certain points, but like you're saying, Jeff, like you can relate to some of this. You could definitely relate to like just even having a party, guys, and like the way which this movie depicts very well. This is how I feel at every house party I kind of hold. But like, the person who has to clean up the mess and clean up after everyone, that dynamic is quite there too.
She literally made the house that right. She literally makes the house, right? Which is in a lot of ways what my wife does. Like she holds the house together in a way that I do not. And it's a source of guilt that I have. But also I did look at it as a real relationship, but one that is described in sort of ephemeral ways, right?
Sure. Yeah.
I think he does love her, but like a lot of creative people, myself included, again, I think I'm going to say things I'm probably going to regret here, but whatever. There is an emptiness inside creative people if they're not creating,
right?
That their significant others always have to deal with. I've always told people, like, don't ever have a relationship with an actor, because it's they love themselves until they hate themselves, and that is the dynamic that I think is happening with Javier Bardem in this movie, right? Is when he is unable to create, there's no amount of love that can fill that hole. she is being genuine, and he loves her back, right? He wants to be open and accessible, but there's this other part of him that needs to be fed that isn't being fed, and he feels frustrated and stymied and can't connect to the other parts of his life because he can't express his entire self, right? And then when the pendulum swings to the other side, he gets seduced into all of the bullshit that comes with that. And and there I'm reminded of getting upset about an interaction I have on Twitter. And my wife, we're about to have dinner. My wife's like, "What's the matter?" And there should be nothing the matter. I should be present here with you. Our life is great. I love you. You love me, and we love our kid. But because this external thing that shouldn't have any impact on my life has now affected me in this negative way, and I've been having this argument online with this stranger because I care about what people think of me and all of that stuff.
It's like you're letting people into your house. You're letting strangers into your house. Basically.
And you care about what they think more than what the person you care about most in the world thinks, because you know that they're going to be there. Your wife is always going to be there. She's the given, right? She's going to support you and love you. And so you don't have to pay attention to that. But this guy who is just coming in, he likes me. He likes my work. Oh my gosh. I better pay attention to him a little bit.
I have fans.
There is that scene when it's brilliant, the acting that goes on between them. There's that scene when he says like, "Oh, so and so likes my work," and then she says, "I've always been a big admirer of your work," and she's like, and he just like dismisses her. He says like, "Of course you are," like as though it's not very important, right?
See, because I really actually I'm blown away and appreciative of everything you're saying, Jeff, and I totally relate to a lot of things you're saying. My problem is I couldn't connect to those things in this film only because it starts with him sort of chewing up and spitting out a girl and then birthing a new one, and then it ends with him basically using her to feed himself off of and then smile as he starts again.
It's a cycle of creativity.
It was the cycle of, but these things you're connecting of, and I'm not trying to judge you. Please, we're talking about the movie. Like I had trouble connecting to him because I would have been far more interested in this film if he had actually shown some regret. Like if he had shown some regret in the loss of her, that's where I feel like it was missing. It didn't hit the mark at the end of like, what did we learn from this? We didn't. It's secular, and it's that really rubbed me the wrong way. Of this like, there's nothing we can learn. It's got to keep creating, and it's like I see how you can take that of like, I don't want to be that. This is a warning story, but I feel like I didn't need to. The warning story was what I didn't want. I wanted him to make a statement and an opinion on. Is this right or wrong?
Like you already have a caution.
More to it.
Right, yeah. You already have cautionary tales in your own life. Like you don't need a movie to tell you to be careful of the lure of fame, right?
And he's doing exactly. It's like the lure of fame is crazy, and I can so relate to that Twitter thing, and I could talk for an hour on how Twitter is destroying civilization as we know it. Like we're so inclined to just react so immediately and judge and tear down and not try and help one another, and just it's a whole, the social media of the world I think is such an interesting topic that it was sort of, he was definitely chipping at that a little bit for sure as the mob sort of came through the house, but I still never felt like he took a stance on like, I would have loved to see Javier like just actually genuinely regret it and then begrudgingly start over again. That would have been a more interesting thing to me.
Some of those later scenes does feel like he regrets what happens, but this is why I say like, yes, the parallels to fame and celebrity are the very obvious, like you can definitely see how the movie is trying to say that, especially with having two very, world famous stars in it. But I also think it's probably one of the least fulfilling parts of this movie, just because, it doesn't really come down in a way that's satisfying for that particular arc. But I do like that, that's one way that you can read the movie amidst many, many other ways. And one thing I've really been thinking about, guys, is that Darren Aronofsky thinks God is a dick. I think that's really it.
Like that.
And Noah was the same deal.
It's hard to argue otherwise, really.
Yeah. But Noah in this movie too, like Bardem as the creator, as the he is cast as him, I believe, in the credits. He is the creator. He is like, he has the plan. He has to make all these things happen. He doesn't have the ability to actually create. And this goes to like broader themes of male and female. Like men, we help, make life. We don't create life. We're just kind of the dicks who are there at the time, whereas women have to deal with everything else. So it's dealing with those broader gender dynamics, but also the idea of like God versus Mother Nature. And I think Aronofsky very much sides with Mother Nature, right? Like God created this thing, and also created humans, and humans are really fucking up this whole earth. Like we are like uninvited guests, and we're just messing it up. We sleep wherever we want, we settle wherever we want, we take what we want. The world gives us warnings like, hey guys, that sink is not braced, but we say fuck it, and we build on the coastlines, and there are like several hurricanes coming at us right now. Like that to me is the bigger thing. Like that broader idea of like his idea of like God the creator versus like Mother Nature and what he really loves. And just looking at his films and like the religious iconography across all of them and his life right now, like he is very much a strict vegan. Like he is all about trying to like reduce his harm on the world. There's a great episode of Anthony Bourdain's Parts Unknown that you should watch, because Aronofsky goes to Madagascar with Bourdain, and Bourdain has a lot of fun just like trolling him because the dude can't eat meat. So like, Bourdain's just here having like, decently good stuff, and Aronofsky has to try to survive. But that environment too, which is being destroyed, Madagascar, really influenced like his, what he wanted to portray for Noah as well. So that's my broader interpretation is God versus Mother Nature. And like, he is really wanting to side with Mother Nature, but yeah, it's a cyclical process, and it'll rebuild itself eventually.
Let me drop some Christian knowledge on you guys. Okay, so I was raised in a very conservative Christian church, and I think one of the most interesting questions in the Christian religion is we are taught that God is all-powerful, all-knowing, and all-good. And so the question is, if God's all those things, why did he create the world? Why did he create mankind, right? Because theoretically, imagine the world before mankind. Everything was awesome, right? It's like the beginning of this movie. It's just the two of these people in this house. It's God and his creation. Everything's lovely. It's all awesome. But here's the thing. That
thing where the person gets a wish from a genie, and they say, I wish there was no suffering in the world.
Right.
And so all of humanity ceases to exist.
So imagine a world, like a universe before mankind existed. Everything was perfect. God's just celebrating with all his angels. Everyone's super psyched to be around. It's great. And ultimately, this movie, in positioning Javier Bardem as God, posits that for God, that's just not enough. Like, he created the world so that people would worship him and give him more glory. And like, that was the best way to elevate God's glory. Was not just like living amongst all these people who thought he was awesome, but living amongst flawed people, some of whom choose to honor him. And I just thought that was really interesting because, the implication, as you said, Devendra, is that God is kind of a dick. It is that there is this kind of egotistical nature to God, because everything being perfect and idyllic wasn't enough. He had to welcome all these humans into his house who really, to be honest, fucked things up really badly. But that was necessary because God just needed that so much. And at least I'm speaking for the movie here. I'm not speaking like reality or whatever. So that was the most fascinating part for me. But Andy, to a point that you made earlier, I think that something that I'm turning over in my head, I haven't made a decision about it yet, but like one thing that kind of makes the movie less interesting to me is that the realism of the movie completely like fades away, in the second half of the movie. Like, imagine if this was a movie where it was told straight, where like everything that happened in the movie could have theoretically happened in real life. I wonder where the drama of the movie worked apart from any allegorical or symbolic representations, which I don't think it really does in this movie. I wonder if it would have been a better movie. I think of like Oh Brother, Where Art Thou or something, where that movie is based on another text, the Odyssey, right? But it takes like very big liberties with the Odyssey. You still recognize characters like the Cyclops from Oh Brother, Where Art Thou, but it is not a one-to-one retelling of the Odyssey in a different setting. And I feel like, obviously that movie is much more enjoyable, a much different movie, and it's, much different style. But that was one of my disappointments with this movie is I feel like it's kind of easy to get kind of reaction out of people if you're just throwing batshit insane stuff at them, which is what the second half of this movie does. It's much harder to get that reaction when you're trying to work within a reality that you've set forward.
And to jump with that, it's like, to me, it's like the moment where I just walked out is where they show you that baby. They show you the baby in the face, and and you just know that baby's gonna die. And then they cut to that scene, and it's like, as a father, and just as going through that, it's like, if you're gonna kill a baby, you really got to have a reason for killing that baby. And I get it. That was sort of the crux for her to go nuclear at that point and finally fight back. But for what point? Like, why do you want to put the audience through that? You've put them through plenty. It started getting just more and more intense for the sake of, it's like saying the F word. Like, it's so easy to say the F word and get the shock value, but like, of course we're going to get disturbed and bothered when you murder a baby on screen, like, for no reason. And that's where the movie sort of soured on me, of just like, okay, great. What are you trying to, where are we going with this is really still where I'm stuck. I mean, did that scene and I'm curious, Jeff, like, for you, I imagine, was that just so dramatic that just continued to make you feel, the way you did?
Well, first of all, I have never gotten more tweets from listeners before our episode came out saying, "Jeff, don't go see Mother."
Yeah, because you have a new baby.
Right. And I had gone to the press screening, so I'd already seen it beforehand. I take issue. I'm going to get around to addressing this specific scene in this way. I take a little issue with Devindra, with you sort of painting with a broad brush of it sort of this interpretation being sort of just about fame, because that is certainly an element of it. But I hope that what I've conveyed that I got from the interpretation that landed most soundly on me is not necessarily about fame per se.
No. I'm not talking about yours. I'm talking about that particular interpretation. You are like dealing more with the gender dynamic that the movie brings up, which I think is very important too. Like, keep going, but I'll add to that.
Yeah, no, definitely the gender dynamic and the roles that people lead in relationships, but also in this sense of this new public life that we all lead. And that moment with the baby, to me, was the ultimate expression of presenting your darlings to strangers.
Yeah. Right. Put it on Instagram.
Put it on Instagramming your kid. Yeah, exactly.
Yep.
Which is what I do, right? I do that. I literally do that. But anybody, I mean, I have, lots of followers, but anybody that's on Facebook that like puts up their picture of their kid or their dog or their wife or themselves and just say, like this.
Yeah, get those likes. Get those likes.
Give me a like, right? And what ultimately the only thing that it can do is A, not be enough, and B, tear that precious thing to shreds. And the people in our lives that, for me, that moment was this woman who's not interested in those things, who sacrificed the most to make this baby come into the world, who cares about it, who nuzzles it. One moment of her, falling asleep results in it being presented to strangers against her will, right? And I did not get the fact that Javier Bardem felt any ill will toward her or the child. He's there. He's present. He's waiting. He's
got to give the people what they want.
But yeah, exactly. But also, like, in that,
he screams at her. He's waiting for her to give up.
Right, but when she is resilient and says no, his response is, "I'm going to get this chair and I'm going to be here. I'm just going to be here." And he's not violent with her. He's not.
Oh, come on. He's saying, "I'm going to wait for you to fall asleep."
Yeah, I guess, but I don't know. I didn't.
Well, I think where I come down on Andy's side is I think Bardem is presented as rather monstrous in the film, but on Jeff's side, I come down as many of the actions of an artist / creator are often like viewed from the outside objectively pretty monstrous,
Oh yeah.
Like you're saying, Jeff, like he did love her, even though in the movie you don't really see any evidence of that. But Jeff, you having been in a similar situation, and some of us have been in similar situations, like we understand that you can love someone and still, like, from the outside, be viewed as being pretty monstrous to them because of this addiction to creation or this addiction to fame. It is a very interesting dichotomy to hold within one person. And I think you're saying that you saw that in Javier Bardem's character, right, Jeff?
Yeah, and I fear that people are going to read into my personal life in a way I don't intend. But I love, we have a great relationship. But there have been those relationships in my life that I've had with significant others that aren't healthy in because of that, or even despite how much you care about one another, there's this other thing that you put them through, and that thing is doesn't mean you love them less. It just means that that's also part of you, and you feel guilty even as you're doing it to them, and like. And yes, maybe I was projecting a lot of shit that this movie, but I mean, that's what good art does, right? And that final moment where he plucks her heart from her chest and she relinquishes it, I didn't find that to be an act of malice either. Like, that's just what he does. He takes people and he uses them, and for him, that's the most divine act of love he could do. And for her too, she like lets him do that. And sort of willfully understands that that's what has to happen right now. I don't know. There's a beauty to it in a dark way.
It's like the cycle of every creative relationship, right? And I don't want to read too much into Aronofsky's life because we know he's dated a whole bunch of famous people and was married to one for a while too. So like that's
this
all
is
that reading is there.
Random question, by the way. Opening shot of the movie. I thought it was Rachel Weisz that was standing in the fire, which would make the movie incredibly fucked up, in my opinion.
Oh man.
But I could not find. I've like searched every source I could and could not find the name of that person in that opening shot. But
it is a different person at the end too, right?
Yeah, it's a different. So there's 3 women that he's going through the cycle with.
Look,
right?
there's but that's not convenient. That there's no way that was an accident. That even if it's not her, it looked like her.
It looked like her, which makes it a pretty fucked up movie, because the implication is that it's an apology. Because the implication here is he's going to churn through Jennifer Lawrence at some point in the next couple of years.
Exactly.
Have you seen them in interviews? I don't know. That implication is certainly there.
Yeah, it's like, dude, get J-Law out of that situation as soon as possible.
J-Law is her own woman. She's doing her thing.
This movie is a cry for help. This movie is a cry for help.
This is also how I feel watching Von Trier and what's her face, like
Charlotte Gainsbourg.
Charlotte Gainsbourg, like between all the movies they've done. Man.
Andy, what were we gonna say?
Yeah, I didn't. Well, the other opening shot just felt a little creepily too, of just like the insert, and we're just staring at her, and just like it all felt a little creepy. Like I that was another. It was off-putting to start, and then I sort of they move on and I let it go, but. I don't want to judge Darren or what's going on, but there was a little bit of like it felt like airing dirty laundry of just like I don't know what I got.
It almost felt like a mea culpa though. Like it did feel like this is kind of what I do. I'm sorry, everybody who loves me.
Here's why I don't think the movie.
It's not a sympathetic view of Javier Bardem's character.
Well, here's why I think the movie is incredibly frustrating and kind of disingenuous. That would be really interesting if he was using the movie as a mea culpa, as a confession, as an insight into his private world, but then he hands out this statement at the screening that's like, this movie is about climate change, And
it was about a million things if you read that statement,
right? Yeah. But it just feels
I
a
have
little
it in front of me if you guys want me to read it.
Maybe we can post some of it online. But
I mean, guys, we have talked about movies can be several things at once. So if he says it's one thing, that doesn't mean like he didn't, also have other meanings in there.
That's fair
some
enough.
of it is. Yeah, we were just talking about that. Like, you don't have to describe everything just because he gave us. He could be giving us a fake, guys. He could be like head faking us. It's like, oh, make them think it's one thing, even though I think it is also.
One of my favorite things I've ever read of Quentin Tarantino when in his discussion of film criticism, and his position. I'm sure you guys have heard this. His position is that film criticism exists in a place where you can make inferences about what a film is or what a filmmaker put in its movie. And whether the filmmaker intended that, had it in their head at all, or not is irrelevant. It has no bearing on, because it's a piece of art that is in the world for interpretation, and
That's how it works.
Any interpretation is valid based on, your expression of it, your ability to
if you can back it up,
right?
You know.
So, and I find that very fascinating. Like even if a filmmaker did not intend that at all, if a film critic makes a case for it, it's a worthy case.
Yeah. Guys, I want to wrap this up by bringing it back to where all great discussions end, and that is the works of Shel Silverstein. Because when that
where the sidewalk ends.
When that nice Jeff, when that final scene happens, and she says, "I have nothing left to give." The first thought I had was that is a direct reference to Shel Silverstein's The Giving Tree. Did you guys catch that?
Oh, yeah.
And later on in one of his many, sorry, go ahead, Andy.
A much better story.
Later on in an interview, in one of his many interviews that we are giving Darren Aronofsky a difficult time for, he acknowledges that scene was inspired by The Giving Tree. Which is, for those who don't know, The Giving Tree, it's a very short book about this tree that gives this child everything that he wants, fruit and branches for his house and all that stuff. And then at the end of its life, the tree has nothing left to give except a place to sit on, which is basically its stump. And it ends in this very kind of bittersweet moment where this tree has given everything it can give, but it is happy in doing that.
But did you feel like she was happy at the end?
Not
that's
so
where
much.
I'm struggling. Like that story, that Shel Silverstein story, that story is like such a powerful story because the tree does give it all away, but this tree is still there, and then the old man learns the lesson. Like even in that short story, that it's sort of depressing in a way, but it's like it's very telling and it's very revealing, and it makes you think twice. Like I didn't get that with this film. Like I still don't understand where Darren's take is. Was she happy? Was he a monster? I give it all the credit in the world for having it make this discussion. And I do want to give credit to Paramount for releasing the film and not burying it somewhere and actually letting him take a chance with this. Like we need more films like this for sure. But it just didn't work for me. It really missed the mark and made me sad, and not in an introspective way, which it sounds like it did for Jeff, which I'm glad it's doing for some. But yeah, you even mentioning up The Giving Tree makes me almost more upset because I'm like, how did Shel Silverstein do it so easily and better? And then Darren couldn't at least wrap a bow at the end to sort of help us really understand what the take was.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I think the fact that he feels the need to get out there and explain himself is kind of an indication that a lot of people just didn't get what he was trying to say. And should art, like if a lot of people, if a huge percentage of people who watch your work don't get it, is that just challenging work, or is it just work that didn't do the job?
But keep in mind, he's not just doing it after the fact. He tried to do it before the fact,
right?
Too.
Right.
That
he's
is
like,
weird.
I'm gonna try. That is very odd. That is very odd. Yeah. But I'm really glad we seem to have had the full spectrum of opinions of this movie on this show.
But we've gone this far, by the way. We haven't mentioned Ed Harris and Michelle Pfeiffer, and I just want to say, love them both, tremendous. And also Michelle Pfeiffer in particular, like she is full on like bringing back her '90s Catwoman vibe.
Yeah, she was
in this
great.
movie.
She
is
both
tremendous.
Yeah, and she kind of represents. Again, reading this as a biblical. Reading this as a biblical allegory, right? Like the scene where Ed Harris is like vomiting, like that's him. Yeah. That's like God making Eve from his rib. That's why his rib's all effed up. And then Eve has typically been depicted as like this conniving character in the Bible, and like that's kind of what she was depicted as in the movie.
Yeah. There's always some sort of temptress too, right?
Yeah, exactly.
David, help me out. Who did Kirsten Wiig play in the Bible?
That's a good question. There's also a lot of questions about like what
the Bible's PR agent.
What is? Yeah,
I mean, there were many.
Her subject line or her credit in the movie credits is Herald, and I've read interviews with Darren Aronofsky where he basically like Herald. That's kind of a biblical term, right? And like that's where the explanation has ended. So I don't know that she represents someone directly because she does end up executing people like shortly after
Hey man,
she
publicists
means-
got to get shit done.
Yeah,
Okay?
that's true. That's true. There's also a
True.
lot of questions about like what the yellow kind of substance that she
Uh-huh.
drinks is. Like I've not seen anyone satisfactorily explain what that yellow
I thought it was
substance
emergency.
is.
Yeah, it's-
Emergency, like the vitamin C stuff. You mean, Jeff?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. But then like Aronofsky's also like occasionally like frustratingly literal. I find, for instance, when she's
Yeah.
like touching the house, like you actually see the house heart beating. You know what I mean? And it's like I don't know if we actually need to see an actual heart beating. I think we already get it. But then again, Aronofsky has never been known for his subtlety in his previous movies, right? So. He is, like you said, Devendra, he does not give a fuck what people think. He's just going to do his own thing. And it is a thing to behold. It is a thing to behold.
And there's some directors that do that, and what they produce is incomprehensible and just like hard to attach yourself to. And I think he's done a good job between honestly, Requiem for a Dream is a movie that I have a hard time watching right now. Like I think that movie was really interesting in its specific time, but
Yes.
right now has not aged well. But Pi and The Fountain and The Wrestler, like when this guy makes it work, it really works well.
I want to mention a couple of other quote-unquote Easter eggs for people who don't know about the Bible. One of them is...
It puts the Easter in Easter egg.
That's right. One of them is like the Ash Wednesday reference, like with people smudging their foreheads with ink.
As religion is being formed, yeah.
Right,
within
as
the
religion
house.
is being formed. Obviously, the scene where they rip the baby apart and start eating it, I think, is a
Yes.
reference to Noah's Ark. No, I'm just joking. It's a reference to communion, if you think about it, communion is a pretty
fucked
fucked
up.
up practice
Yeah.
in
Oh, yeah.
Catholicism and Christianity.
we're all cannibals. Yeah.
Yeah, like the idea is that you're in Catholicism. I believe they believe in transubstantiation. I think is the idea that you're actually like that the bread or the cracker physically becomes the flesh of Jesus, then that you're eating it. Anyway, I thought it was like you're seeing it displayed in all of its true horror in this movie, and also it is a common myth or a common like legend, folklore, whatever, that God has actually created the world many times. Like He's created it and destroyed it many times, and that's another thing that the beginning and end of this movie also kind of gestures towards, is this idea that maybe this is like the 50th time that God has created Earth and we're living on it or something like that. So I thought there were a lot of nice little kind of Easter eggs in there, but yeah, the movie was also extremely frustrating. I'm right between you guys. Jeff,
Yeah.
I found it was a profoundly moving experience. Andy, a profoundly frustrating experience as well. So,
That's good art, right? Moving and frustrating, I think.
indeed.
I'd rather watch that than Transformers.
All
There
right,
you go.
you're
You're
the
here.
best recommendation ever from Andy here. All right, well, it's been a pleasure to have you on, Andy. I just want to mention for those who are listening right now, you can find more episodes of this podcast at /filmcast.com. Email us at /filmcast@gmail.com. Our music comes from AdamWarrock.com. Our spoiler bumper from Kyle Hillinger. Andy, where can people find more of your work on the internet this week?
Yeah, go to YouTube and look up Screen Junkies or Screen Junkies News, our two channels, and check out Honest Trailers. That's what most people know us for. And you can find me at Andy Signor on all the socials.
What is the honest trailer this week, by the way?
Wonder Woman. That was a tough one.
Oh
Nice.
boy.
Too.
Looking forward to checking
Wonder
that
Woman.
out.
A lot of fun.
Yeah, check it. I watch Honest Trailers every week. Huge fan. Jeff Kanata, where can I find more of your work on the internet this week?
Hey, you weren't here. We talked about the Emmys. You went to the Emmys, right, Andy?
I did.
Were you were
nominated.
nominated for an Emmy, right?
Nominated.
Honest Trailers. It's not second year in a row we were nominated. I got
Amazing.
to go with our date Michael Bolton, who was producer on the show this year. It was unreal.
Amazing.
Congratulations.
Amazing. Congrats
Thank you,
on the
guys.
nomination. That's awesome. How about you, Jeff Kanata? Where can people find more of your work on the internet?
On Twitter at Jeff Kanata with 2 N's and 1 T, and I have several other shows, especially if you like video games. I have a daily video game show, only 10 minutes a day, keeps you up to date. It's real quick. It's called Newest, Latest, Best. You can find it on Anchor at anchor.fm/NLB or on Google Play or iTunes. I also have a weekly video game show called DLC, and you can find that at 5by5.tv/DLC. And I do a comedy science show called We Have Concerns, which you can find at wehaveconcerns.com.
How about you, Devendra?
You can find me on Twitter at Devendra, and I write about tech at Engadget.com.
Find all my stuff at davechen.net. I'm on Twitter at DaveChensky. That's DaveChen, SKY. Next week, we'll be reviewing Kingsman 2, The Golden Circle. Looking forward to talking with you guys about that movie. Thanks for listening to the official podcast of SlashFilm.com. We'll see you next week.